took this job for the solitude. That's what I told myself. After everything that had happened, after the divorce, after the quiet funeral no one came to, I needed to be alone. Needed to hear my own thoughts echo in the vastness of nothing. So when the Forestry Service offered me a seasonal position as a fire lookout in one of the most remote towers in the Northwest, I said yes before they could finish explaining the logistics. A helicopter would drop me off. Supplies would come every 2 weeks, weather permitting. I would have a radio for emergencies, a shortwave for check-ins, and binoculars to sweep the endless forests below. No roads, no people. Just me, the trees, and the sky. It sounded like peace. For a while it was. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. My days blurred together. Wake up with the sun, boil water for coffee, log my observations, scan the horizon for smoke or lightning strikes, then read until my eyes burned or write in the journal they'd given me. Sometimes I'd hike down the trail that led nowhere just to stretch my legs, but the feeling of being watched in the thick woods always pulled me back before sunset. The first strange thing I noticed came on day 16. I was doing my afternoon sweep, binoculars in one hand, logbook in the other, when I saw someone. Far out across the valley, on a ridge that was nothing but rock and pine, stood a figure. They were too far away to make out details, but I could tell they were facing me. Standing still. Staring. At first I laughed. Maybe it was a ranger on patrol or a hiker who got turned around. But that ridge was 15 miles from any marked trail, and there hadn't been a supply drop yet. No way someone just wandered up there. I watched them for a long time. They didn't move. Eventually the sun dropped and I lost them in the shadows. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, they were gone. I chalked it up to a trick of the light or a branch shaped just right. A human-shaped bush, maybe. My mind playing games. But 3 days later, they were back. Same ridge, same posture, same eerie stillness. I stared at them through the binoculars until my eyes watered. I thought about calling it in, but what would I say? There's a guy on a ridge being weird. No smoke, no fire, not an emergency. I just noted it in the log. Unidentified figure observed on Western Ridge. No apparent danger. Will monitor. The sightings continued. Never more than once every few days. Always the same distance. Always the same place. But one day, the figure had moved a little, just a few feet to the left, as if adjusting their view, as if trying to get a better look at me. That's when I started to lose time. Hours would disappear, especially at night. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. With the light still on, binoculars in my lap, the figure burned into my retinas. I stopped writing in the journal. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. One evening, during a thunderstorm, the radio crackled to life. Tower 9. This is base. Come in, Tower 9. I jumped like I'd been shot. Fumbled for the receiver. Go ahead, I said, voice hoarse. We're seeing some unusual activity in your area. Infrared picked up movement last night. Might be animals, but keep your eyes open. Copy? Copy, I said, then paused. Has anyone been assigned to patrol near the West Ridge? Negative. Closest personnel are over 30 miles south. Why? I didn't answer. By week 5, I stopped using the binoculars. I didn't need to anymore. The figure was closer. They'd moved down from the ridge into the valley and were now standing at the edge of the tree line less than half a mile from my tower. I could see them with my naked eye, a tall silhouette, unmoving, too perfectly still to be natural. I began sleeping during the day and watching the forest at night. I kept a flashlight and flare gun beside me at all times. I locked the hatch, even though no one should be able to climb 20 feet of smooth metal ladder without making a sound. But sometimes, just before dawn, I'd hear the faint creak of wood from below. Like footsteps. Like something or someone walking in slow, deliberate circles around the base of the tower. I finally snapped on day 39. There was no sighting that day. The figure didn't appear. For once, the woods looked empty, and that terrified me more than anything. I grabbed the binoculars and scanned every inch of forest, every slope, every shadow. Nothing. I ran down the steps of the tower, flare gun in hand, and started down the trail. My heart thudded with each step, not from fear anymore, but rage, paranoia, frustration. I needed answers. The woods were deathly quiet. No wind, no birds, just the crunch of my boots and the pounding in my ears. I don't know how far I walked, maybe a mile, maybe 5, before I stopped. There in a small clearing stood a structure. It wasn't on any of my maps. A lean-to made of branches and canvas, half collapsed. Inside, scraps of clothing, a broken pair of binoculars, and a stack of notebooks. Dozens of them. I opened one at random. Inside were page after page of my own handwriting, logs, dates, descriptions, observations of a figure on a ridge, moving closer each day. I dropped the notebook like it burned me, backed away, looked around. The woods felt alive, watching, waiting. Then I saw the footprints, leading from the lean-to into the trees. Not mine. Larger, barefoot. I ran. When I finally reached the tower, the sun was setting. I scrambled up the ladder 2 rungs at a time, slammed the hatch shut, and pushed a shelf over it. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the window, eyes scanning the darkening forest. At 3:14 a.m. I saw the figure again, directly at the base of my tower. They looked up. I didn't look away. They raised one hand slowly, waved. I think I passed out. The helicopter came on day 45. They found me dehydrated, shaking, muttering to myself. I asked them about the lean-to. They said they didn't find anything. I asked for the notebooks. They said I never turned any in. I asked about the figure. They just looked at each other and said I needed rest. That was 6 months ago. I've tried to move on, got a new job, new apartment, but every time I close my eyes, I see that ridge, that shape, that impossible stillness. Sometimes I think I see someone watching me from the alley across the street. Last night, I found a new notebook on my doorstep. Inside, my handwriting. The last page said day 1. Arrived at tower, finally alone. I've always loved the quiet. That's probably why I ended up here. A fire lookout tower, 10 miles from the nearest dirt road. My job? Scan the forest for smoke, report weather conditions, stay alert. For 8 weeks I'd be completely alone, except for the radio check-ins and the occasional supply drop. I was ready, prepared for the silence. What I wasn't prepared for were the sounds. The first week passed like a dream. Endless forests stretching in every direction. The wind moving like breath through the trees. At night, the stars were so clear they almost looked fake. There were sounds, of course. Owls, insects, branches settling. But they were all natural, predictable. It wasn't until the 10th night that I heard something different. It started with a knock. Not from the door, from beneath the tower. 3 sharp raps against the metal supports, like someone was standing under me. Testing the structure, I froze. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. I waited. No footsteps, no voices, no movement. I leaned out with my flashlight, scanning below. Nothing but black trees and empty forest. I didn't sleep that night. By the next morning, I had convinced myself it was thermal expansion, metal reacting to temperature changes. Simple. But the next night, it happened again. Same pattern. Same time, around 2:30 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. Always 3. This time, it was followed by a low dragging sound, like something being pulled across the ground. I opened the hatch and shouted into the dark, "Hello?" No response. But the sound stopped. I started logging it. Unexplained structure noise, I wrote. Possible animal activity. I even set up a wildlife camera at the base of the tower the next day, but the footage came back clean. No movement, no animals, no people, just dead air. The knocking returned every night, always around the same time. Sometimes accompanied by that dragging noise, sometimes whispering. Faint, almost like wind. Except it wasn't. It was rhythmic, intentional, like breathing. I told myself I was imagining it. Sleep deprivation, isolation, my brain filling in blanks. Still, I started sleeping with my boots on and the flare gun loaded, just in case. On day 21 I heard something new. Not from beneath the tower, but on it. I had just settled into bed when the sound came. A metallic clang from the walkway outside. Then another. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling the tower. I jumped up, grabbed my light, and burst through the door. But there was nothing. No one. Just the creaking metal handrails swaying in the wind. But the next morning, I noticed something. On the far end of the platform, a smear of dirt, like a handprint. 4 fingers, no thumb, and it was on the outside of the railing. That night, I barricaded the door and stayed up with the radio on. I even considered calling it in, but what would I say? Someone might be crawling around outside my tower in the middle of the night, but I'm not sure. They'd write me off as stir-crazy. Hell, maybe I was. Week 5, the noises changed again. Now I'd hear scratching, slow, methodical, on the underside of the floorboards, like fingernails dragging along wood. Once the scratching followed me. Wherever I stood, the sound was directly below me. I jumped up and down, pounded on the floor, yelled, "I know you're down there." It stopped. I decided to hike down the next morning. Look around the tower base for signs, maybe animals, maybe something else. There were no prints, no signs of burrowing. But I did find something. Wedged between the support beams was a bundle of cloth. Wrapped tight with twine, I pulled it free and opened it. Inside, a child's shoe. An old photo, faded and damp, of a man standing in front of a tower. Not mine, but a tower. On the back, written in smudged pencil, "He won't leave until someone takes his place." I burned the bundle. I don't know why. Impulse, fear, the kind that lives in your gut, not your brain. That night, I didn't sleep at all. And for the first time since arriving, the sounds didn't come. No knocking, no footsteps, no whispers, just silence. But it wasn't comforting. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. The peace lasted 3 days. Then, on night 34, the radio crackled to life at 2:31 a.m. But there was no voice, just static, and a faint, familiar sound layered beneath it. Knock, knock, knock. I turned the volume down, held my breath. From directly beneath my bed came a slow, dragging sound. Closer now, right under my feet. I ran outside with the flashlight, circled the tower, heart pounding. Nothing. But when I looked up at the walkway above me, someone was standing there. Not moving, backlit by the moon. No face, no features, just a dark silhouette, staring down at me. I didn't go back up. I stayed on the ground until sunrise, pacing with my flare gun and flashlight until the figure vanished with the first light. When I climbed back up, everything was as I left it. Door locked, hatch secured. But there, on the bed, a new photo. Another tower. Another man. Me. Sleeping. The chopper came for me 2 days later. I hadn't radioed for help, but they said the last person assigned to this tower had, 6 weeks ago. They'd never found him. Just the camera. Still recording. Still hearing those knocks at 2:30 every morning. I left that place and never looked back. But sometimes when I wake up at night, I swear I hear it again. Knock, knock, knock. Coming from beneath the floorboards, and I lie still, hold my breath and pray that I'm not the next photo in someone else's tower. You stop noticing how quiet the forest is after a few days. The absence of noise becomes a kind of background hum. It wasn't my first season as a fire lookout. I knew the drill. Scan for smoke, radio and reports, check weather instruments. But this posting was different. Tower 12 was the most remote one in the region. No nearby roads, no maintained trails, no fellow lookouts for over 50 miles. The kind of place they only send people who ask for it. And I did. After what happened last year, I wanted to disappear. The first week went fine. I settled into the rhythm. Coffee at sunrise, sweep the horizon, log the conditions, read, repeat. Sometimes I wouldn't hear a single sound all day but the wind through the pine. But on day 8, I saw something. It was late afternoon. The light was going gold over the treetops. I was scanning the ridgeline to the north, just a habit at that point, when something caught my eye. Movement. A figure. Standing alone on the slope far from any marked trail. No gear, no hat. Just standing, facing me. At first I thought it was a hiker who'd gotten lost. I grabbed my binoculars and focused in. Male, I think. Tall, thin. No backpack. Clothes looked too dark for hiking, maybe black or just dirty. He wasn't waving for help. Wasn't moving at all, actually, just standing completely still. Arms at his sides, head tilted slightly upward. Toward me. I watched him for about 10 minutes. Didn't move once. No shift in weight. No gestures. Nothing. Eventually I looked away to radio it in. When I looked back, he was gone. I logged it. Unidentified person spotted on Northern Ridge. No distress signals. Possibly a hunter? Didn't think much more of it. Figured they'd wandered off. Kept hiking. But the next day, at the exact same time, he was there again. Same spot, same posture, still staring. I called it in. Told dispatch there might be someone squatting or lost. They said they'd flag it, but no one should be anywhere near that area. No permits, no open trails, no patrols. I kept watching. That night, I woke up just after 2 a.m. No sound had woken me. Just a feeling. Like something wasn't right. I stood by the window for a while, peering out into the woods. Nothing. But as I turned to go back to bed, I caught a shape at the very edge of the darkness. A tall silhouette, motionless, much closer than the ridge. The next morning, I hiked down and checked the area. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. I tried to convince myself it was a tree. A trick of light and nerves. But then I found something under the stairs leading up to the tower. A stone, flat, smooth, and scratched into its surface in neat little letters, "I see you too." After that, the figure appeared every day, sometimes in the same place, sometimes closer, always watching. I tried to photograph him through the binoculars once, but the shot was blurry, distorted, almost like heat waves, but in places there shouldn't be any. One day I blinked and he was 10 feet closer. Same expression, same blank stare. Still not a single step caught in the act. I stopped calling it in. What would I say? There's a man that moves closer when I'm not looking, but only by inches. I stopped sleeping, started locking the hatch, kept the flare gun nearby, just in case. On day 24, I finally broke. I waited until mid-afternoon, when he always showed up, and hiked toward him. It felt like walking toward a painting. He didn't move, didn't flinch. But the closer I got, the more wrong he looked. His arms hung just a little too long. His posture was off, like someone imitating human shape but missing key details. And his face? It was blank. Not expressionless, blank. Skin where eyes should have been. A smear of a mouth that didn't open. I stumbled back. Fell. Ran all the way back to the tower. Didn't stop shaking for hours. The next morning I found another stone on the railing. This one read, "Now I know where you live." I kept the flare gun in my lap all day. Watched every shadow stretch across the trees. Waited. But he didn't show up again. Not that day. Not the next. For a moment I thought it was over. Until the final night. I was drifting in and out of sleep when I heard something on the walkway. A soft tap, then another. I grabbed the flare gun and crept toward the door. I didn't open it, didn't need to, because through the crack in the blinds, I saw him, right outside the glass, just inches away. That same blank face, staring in. I didn't shoot, didn't scream, I just stood there. And then, he turned, walked to the edge of the platform, climbed over the railing, and stepped off into nothing. The rescue chopper came a week later. They asked if I'd seen anything unusual. I told them, no, just trees and weather. But as they flew me away, I couldn't help but look back at the tower one last time. And there he was, standing on the ridge again, as still as ever, watching.